Hello, and welcome back to the Geek on My Sleeve channel. This is Geek Out 104, Hunt, Book 1 of the Lineage by Rohan Hublikar, and Dakota Krout. Yeah, it has a lot of potential. It was not my favorite of the first of the series, and we'll go a little bit more into that here shortly, but yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. And first books in the series are always a bit rough because they kind of have to like get the foundation and everything set up. Um, and
Or so I
like,
guess in regards to that, if we're going there, I guess we'll start off with a good thing. The beginning where it starts at the end. Normally, I don't care for that trope, but I thoroughly enjoyed it for starting with the scene where the master, essentially takes out the king
yeah,
of
it,
the Lion Kingdom. And
it,
so I think there's a lot of could be interesting literary device potential stuff going on where my understanding from the prologue was this is the master reliving um oh not Andros Garin.
Gar, yeah.
Yeah, Garin's memories of him being, so I could very easily see us getting random like pop out moments where whatever, but that's not how memory stones work. Anyway, so he did the whole beginning at the end well. Um,
Which Divine Dungeon does that too, right? Like a little bit.
I,
At
it
least you get
it
like the first
does,
three
and
book lab.
that one.
Real quick before we go too much further, for anybody new catching this on replay, et cetera, spoilers ahead for the hunt, and pretty much any geek out where we've covered a Divine Dungeon series book is fair game up until that point. So
Yeah,
all of the
that's the
Divine
biggest
Dungeon,
strength of this book
all
is causal connections, as well as that's what we love
yeah.
about Dakota Krout. So
And as fanboys, like it's nice that with the scene with the master, it kind of gives us that like point in time where we can get the reference of like, oh, like when is this happening? And if like you look at the Divine Dungeon series, pretty much was it like end of book three? Book three is when we have like the big um, you know, war with the undead,
oh yeah, 3
necromancer.
is the 4 is the runes, 5 is the scramble.
Hmm. So pretty much like we knew that the master went around um, you know, giving offering terms to all the different rulers. We knew that King Henry's father um kind of met his end. So this book gave us that scene of how it went down. And it's kind of shocking that he really didn't put up much of a fight, right? And we get to see one where King Henry's kingdom kind of came from. Yet for book one, not really, right? Like we're just pretty much start when he starts cultivating a little bit before that.
Yeah, yeah, I think he's like 15 or something, and he
Mm-hmm.
lives a couple hundred years.
Mm-hmm.
The beginning aspect. So, if I'm not mistaken, the master essentially tried to take over the world, so to speak, 4 times at least. Because in Divine Dungeon, there's a
Well, the
conversation with Chandra.
necromancers, or the master, or the
I'm pretty
necromancers.
sure it's the master, because I want to say book 4 when Xenocide shows up and the master is pretty much, acting defeated because he's got hit with the soul attack, and Madame
Mm,
Chandra's like, "Oh, come on, you've tried 4 times already. Why are you gonna give up now?"
okay.
So
I
it
really want to read
gives.
that novella. Like supposedly there's a novella that we get more of the master's backstory.
Do we have
Um,
it?
I don't know if it's an audio format.
Oh, been hiding
Yeah.
stuff from me.
Uh,
Okay, okay. Yeah, so that's where this
Br-
book has a lot of interesting potential that could be covered, and it just, for me, it fell flat on the delivery, right? And so, for example, Divine or Dungeonborn, we had the multiple perspectives from Cal and from uh Dale, and yeah, so we had both of their beginnings, and we had the struggles they went through and the development. And I'll give it to them that Cal is very unique because normally it's a beast that gets pulled into it. So there's
mhm.
more of that just survival or animal instinct, which we kind of felt throughout this one. And we don't know how long he's been there. Um, and then
Real quick before I forget it, um, Dennis Vanderkerken, author of Artorian Archives, really appreciate you hanging out with us today. Um, his comment, that is a section called Butcher Boy in the Essence book, reference to the Master story, which we get some, I think we learned in the Divine Dungeon series that he was
or I
originally a
thought that
butcher's boy.
was it might have been Arturian Archives. No, it's probably
That's the,
Divine Dungeon. I remember the
oh,
conversation where it's like, would you believe all I wanted to do was become a butcher's apprentice or something?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, how life takes us to different places.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, carry on,
So,
Pete.
so I okay, sidestep. The things that we know from the other series that could pertain to Lion's lineage is A, King Henry becomes King Henry because his father died. We established that in the prologue.
Mm,
B, there have been several necromantic wars that plague them. C, the Henry does have a moment where he's in tight with the people because he knows the they use a different word. It's not king, it's like warlord. Anyway, but he knows him. So when we get to
mm,
Henry's childhood, could be a thing. It's probably going to be a while before we get there.
that's
I'm
true.
trying to think what else we know. We
It would be a lot
know,
of fun to see more of Henry's childhood and everything, especially as in the later series. Like, what are we up to? Book 5 in Artorian Archive. So,
or yeah, he actually just
well,
I
as
think
far as
Kindle
where we're
launched,
rating,
and yeah. There's a new one out for pre-order for Audible, but
nice.
yeah, we're not quite there yet. Um,
Still getting there, but we're getting to see more of our favorite characters now in Artorian Archives. Now that the timelines are starting to get closer to the completionist chronicles, so it'll be very interesting to see, because right now, like, we had the master opening scene, which was like around book 3 in the Divine Dungeon series, and we pretty much have now
mm,
gone back several hundred years
I guess I
because,
felt like the Master had a section in every book because it was like, well, I guess after the fact
well, in this
because
one
we
with
get
Lion's Lineage, because like he kills um Gar, the king,
yeah.
right? Which, yeah, but then like we're like several hundred years back, so we could learn a lot about the lore of the world before the Divine Dungeon series, as well as if it's the lineage that we're following, then that goes on to King Henry, right?
Yeah,
So like the
yeah,
series could
exactly.
even go up through King Henry's point of view, which the Completionist Chronicle series starts out in the human kingdom, right?
Or sorry, complete. Yeah. Completionist
Hmm.
Chronicles starts out in the Human Kingdom. Yeah, there's several hundred years before we get to the Divine Dungeon and before we get to um Arturian Archive because, Arturian I think is like 80s. No, he's
Mhm.
50, but he looks 80 when he starts, and it's only a couple years until where we're current. Um, but yeah, so Divine Dungeon delivered world building, character development, and made me invested in the well being of the characters, as well
Mhm.
as the ending is similar to Lion's Lineage, but it was in the middle of an epic battle, as well as it led you to believe that he was actually dead, and it kept the suspense. And then after it happened, it, kind of solidified and added a very unique element. And I guess in
Mhm.
some respects, like the Divine Dungeon title is essentially the story, but it's how it comes about.
Mhm.
And for this one, the ending, maybe it's because I've read the Divine Dungeon, but I was like, oh, he's fine, you know?
Well,
And
we
then I
know
guess,
that he's going to be fine because he survives until
or
the
yeah,
master,
it's
right?
his lineage.
Yeah.
I guess for me, it was lacking.
It's
Yeah,
different, right?
it was
And for
very
me,
different because Divine Dungeon did a lot of things well. Arturian Archive, uh, Dennis kind of has like the 3-act structure through most of his books. Where, for example, book one we have being the elder, bonding with the children, and like we actually develop that relationship.
Mhm.
Where in the hunt, yeah, they knew each other when they were boys. Yes, one of them is, or just so happens to be a noble, and eh, the bad guy wins, at the end, which is okay. I can see the hero's journey starting that way, but normally that's like the first step. And I guess this is book one, so there's a lot of potential there. But the relationship was already developed,
Mhm.
and all the additional characters we added didn't really add much sustenance, so to speak. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I was thinking a bit about this because I remember us talking about this earlier. Um, the Divine Dungeon was like one of our first books into the lit RPG genre, so it's always going to have a special place
That's true. I'm
in
probably a
our
little
heart.
biased.
Yeah, and what's nice about Divine Dungeon series is it feels very familiar for people who have like MMO experience or video game experience because you quickly get to the dungeon party element of it. So that kind of feels familiar and fun, as well as like Cal as a dungeon is so unique. And the nice thing about Lion's Lineage is we get that contrast because like in the Divine Dungeon series, Danny talks about like how she starts to notice more and more how Cal is so much smarter, so much more intelligent, like is rapidly having conversations um a lot sooner than dungeons should because they're pretty much usually like animal beast cores, right? So they'll have
Yeah,
kind of
and
like that
takes
instinctual
several
bit.
thousand years before they can even
Yeah.
communicate.
And we get to see a little bit of that with Lion's Lineage with Typo. Um, but he starts out or he's in the G rank because he just gets to F1 when we finally have Andy and Gar get there. And then later on, I think he gets maybe to the D ranks. I remember us talking about like
I
F8 or
thought
something after a couple kills. So then like he goes from just the emotions. like 2 to 3 emotions with feelings behind it to by the end we're at yes and no,
Yep.
right? Where Cal in book 1 and Danny, we were able to get like so much more interaction. But it was nice to kind of see like another dungeon. And
I guess that's true. That's very true, because for the whole thing being, the dungeon element, I think, what do
Mhm.
we see, like 4 or 5 through the Divine Dungeon?
And they were a
And
lot
then,
older.
or yeah, they're
Yeah,
older, and then this
yeah.
one's unique to see it from the different perspective. And then, um, so Lion's Lineage is essentially going to be developed from the dungeon, and people are going to know about it. And then we
Mhm.
know the people end up essentially sitting on top of a dungeon, which has a lot of unique elements. And we've met with the Wood Elves through Arturian archives, and they,
Right.
I don't believe, are sitting right on top of a dungeon. Um,
But yeah, kind of going a step back. The Divine Dungeon series like felt very familiar in the party sense. Artorian's Archive, he was already one of my favorite characters. So like when we started Artorian Archives, I kind of knew what to expect with that. Like
that's true. It's
we're
very
getting
much a blank
sunshine.
slate here.
Yeah. And so for me, like I think that's what kind of tripped me up and took me a little bit to get into it. Like I definitely enjoyed the book more my second listen through than I did my first listen through. But if I had to pick a series that this reminds me of more so than anything else, it would almost be you remember the Cycle of Galand, where you pretty much had Galand and
Yeah, that was a very long,
oh, what's
drawn
his name?
out
Buckler
process.
or whatever. Yeah, but it's pretty much like two best friends, right? And it was pretty much the noble boy and
And the mercenary.
yeah, for that one, where with this one, it's the noble boy and like the kitchen help or the peasant boy who is there. And
Yeah,
there's
okay. I
probably
guess
more of a
that's
backstory.
true. Throughout it, I was kind of like, okay, but by the end of it, I'm like, all right, and a little bit of hyperbolic time chamber moment for book 2. Save our boy there, who's also going to be
I'm
developing.
excited for the potential because remind me if I'm wrong, but he pretty much has Typo and a staff, right? And the Wisp where they're now moving him.
Or yeah, the epilogue, they moved him to a different location. They went through the portal and moved him closer
Uh
to where, oh, not Garin,
Andy,
yeah,
I forget his full
Andros,
name. Yeah.
where Andros is, so they can build back up. And I guess, yeah, I'm excited to see the development of Typo, and
Mhm.
I'm excited to see how we go about saving Andy, as well as this is before he's essentially a nobody, a fishy, and he ends up being, oh, I forget how high he is. He's not double S, because I think the master at the end is double and Xenocide's triple, about to go into Heavenly.
Mhm.
Yeah, so anyway, we're at Fishy, and we have a couple hundred years to get to double S, so, or S. And yeah, there's a lot there. We
Mhm.
also know that they end up butting heads with the Phoenix Kingdom, so we could see that. We know from the prologue that the Master had attempted to take over the world 2 times throughout his lineage, which leaves us more backstory room for the extra 2 times that the Master
Mhm.
tried to take over the world. Um,
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. I wish I made more time to hop onto the Mountaindale Discord server to chat with those guys about the book as I was getting through it. If you guys haven't already checked them out, um, the majority of the Mountaindale Press authors are on there, like Dennis, aka Floof, and the rest of them. Hop and chat. Uh, there's just so much time and space that they could cover with this series, right? Like
Oh
you
yeah.
could even do a time hop every couple of years, and with several hundred years of building up the kingdom and the backstory and like the questing and adventuring and
Or
building up typo and everything.
when we pick up Madame Chandra, or sorry, when Hans and Dale
When they
go
go to the
to,
pleasure house in
yeah,
the
is that in the
capital.
Lions lineage or Lions territory, or is that in the Phoenix territory?
That's a good question. I don't remember. I need to go back and reread the Divine Dungeon now that I've gotten through this one.
Or I it
You did?
I don't remember which one it is, but that random conversation about the sewer pits and blah
Mm-hmm.
blah blah, you know, after
And the
going to
pleasure
the
house,
capital, and
doing it
the
with the
most
grandma.
exciting thing that you can talk about is, the sewer system, and then it goes off into the, yeah, grandma bit.
Yep.
Anyway,
Yep. Yep.
oh man, yeah, there's so much growth potential here. And like now, by the end of the book, I'm invested in seeing how, um, oh man, I keep flipping up the names. Not Andros, how
Gar.
Garin develops.
Mm-hmm.
If we get a differing viewpoint for Andros,
It'd
and
be
yeah,
fun as Typo develops to kind of get some of his perspectives too, because that's something we got spoiled with in Divine Dungeon. We had the two different viewpoints of Cal and Dale, right?
yep.
So yeah, it's going to be fun watching Typo develop more, as well as Gar, and kind of like just that path there to you know the Lion Kingdom, knowing that, oh, was it Rye who's dungeon board? That'll be interesting to see, because looking at the cover,
I
that's
don't think that
Rye,
scene
right?
happened
I don't think. Hmm. Yeah, I don't think that scene happened.
because they did trial a lot of their traps,
Uh huh.
but they were all in the dungeon. And that scene does come up a couple times, like when they're, trying to get away and then they end up coming back and it's like, oh, I know
Mm-hmm.
we're close because I see the tree
Mm-hmm.
and the blah. And like that's definitely something that was incorporated, but I think the way the ropes wrapped around, it's almost like the very beginning scene where Andros, essentially bottoms out from using his movement technique and puts him up in the tree. But I guess that was a different tree. Anyway, I don't know how I feel about the cover. Though I guess I'm also being selfish because
Yeah.
the Divine Dungeons started off with the black and white covers,
Mm-hmm.
and they, yeah, they were relevant. But ooh, baby, are those new ones very
Pretty
nice,
nice.
very, very sleek, and yeah, even more so relevant. But yeah, yeah, and I guess, oh, my favorite quote of the book was when they're with the old guy and they're sitting down for dinner and he's talking about the money and he brings out the coin and he's like, "What do you guys think this is worth?" And,
Uh,
he's like, "Nothing. I can't even wipe my, let's not talk for the dinner table with it." And yeah, it's unique reset where, yeah,
yeah. Um, how'd you feel about the book as far as like learning curve getting into it? because I caught myself, and I think we talked a little bit about it, where um, I found that like a lot of the knowledge going in made it that much easier to pick up, like the language of like fishy and you know.
You could definitely start on this book, and that would be
Hmm.
fine. The only thing that wouldn't have been like an aha moment is that I guess the type or the series name says it, Lion's Lineage. So I guess the
Hmm.
prologue wouldn't make as much sense. But other than that, I mean, it could be first book. Um,
Well, they even
there
include
was
that in like the description and stuff too. So, um, like the Goodreads, it's the sickly servant, a powerful young master, an alliance kingdoms are made from. So,
ooh,
yeah, centuries before
I
a certain dungeon first
I guess
met, a
that
wise
is a
pink wisp.
unique element because currently we have the lead guy of the Northmen who turns into the I'm not a werewolf. I can't think of the actual name.
They have a dungeon.
And they have they have the dungeon and they fight with Henry throughout the Completionist Chronicles. Back up a step, Henry and Marie
My dungeon can beat up
have
your
the
dungeon.
feels for each other, but it almost seems like the Phoenix and the Lion Kingdom aren't allies, but they aren't enemies. They're kind of like at arm's length. So you get that. Oh,
Neighboring
Not
kingdoms.
Rapunzel. What am I thinking? Shakespeare? Yeah, you get that Shakespeare where
Yeah.
they're from.
Yeah.
Except for I guess that's a peasant and a noble. Anyway, so in that regards, I guess I wasn't thinking that Andros was Phoenix Kingdom, but yeah, I could see that developing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's bittersweet. Like part of me wants the series to rush to where we get to see more of like the people we know and love, but then also there's a lot of like,
I want more development of the world.
wait, what? You want them to stop and smell the roses, Pete, and develop the world more?
Yeah,
As long as there's enough
because
combat in there, because clearly to form a kingdom, you're going to have to crush some fire cultivators, right?
yeah, yep. I guess so that was another point that I didn't feel like it made sense. The two elves that end up dealing with them towards the end,
Hmm.
they didn't want to kill kids. Okay, so points for them, but it felt like every moment was an evil villain monologue, and they didn't even have a good monologue. Where
But they weren't evil.
I guess that's actually I take the other quote back. That's my favorite quote. Well, what's your job? It's like, oh, to get the nobles. And it's like, no, I ask you this every time. What's your
Yeah.
job? And it's like, make money, don't work, and don't die.
Right. Right.
I was like, okay.
Yep. 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 I definitely can see that.
And like that also, I guess that's a unique character where oh, it slips up one time. One of them calls her something, and she's like, I'm not a princess or I'm not a queen anymore because I don't have a kingdom. So I'm expecting them to somehow become involved and help him set up a kingdom to give them a place of power, kind of like what Dale does.
Mm.
I don't know. There's some
It's
potential there, as well as the guy who we knock out on our way out, and then also we save him from the beast, and then he
yeah, the
gives
guard, the low rank guard.
yeah,
It's
I
going to be
see him
interesting.
getting some love as well
Hmm.
as his baby becoming a BA
Yeah, one of the
just
founding
because,
nobles or whatnot.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome Chaz.
Yeah, always good to see you, buddy. No worries. We completely get how life happens, but it's good
I
to see you.
I was gonna say life's been
Busy week.
happening a lot lately.
Yeah, yeah. Literally just finished helping move some family. Hop on for this, and then going to get back to more boxes and stuff a little bit later. But we appreciate you guys making time to hang out with us, geek out with us. Love this little corner of the internet we found. Um, yeah, and Lions Lineage, it was a fun trip. I know we've come full circle on it, but
So
once I
yeah,
checked
like
my expectations of it, it's a fun contribution
it's
to the
in
series.
a unique spot because the Divine Dungeon does it very well and what just like kept me wanting more, as well as just had a lot of unique elements. And I think I was mesmerized by the world and just everything going on. And then
Mhm.
Arturian Archive, like we already knew the character. Granted, we didn't know a whole lot about him, but we already had the grandfatherly sunshine and love mage, and
Right.
that is a very apt description of the Arturian Archive and just grows and develops from there.
Mhm.
And Lion's Lineage, like we didn't know a whole lot about it because I think all we really see of it is Dale saying, "Hey, I purchased noble ship or whatever land rights from both the Phoenix and the Lion Kingdom." And then we
Mhm.
get Queen Marie, who makes him a noble or whatever in the
Mhm.
Elven lands. But then,
Or I think Marie is from Phoenix. You're talking about, yeah, our
oh
dark
yeah, yeah,
elf. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
you're right. Oh, I'm
Her
gonna
name will
remember
come
it
to me later. Yeah.
anyway. Um, yeah, and then what else do we get? We get when Al accidentally releases the mind control spore thing. That I'm excited to see
That's
because
true.
they survived most of that because we got to see it in our Turn archive because we got to see the fire soul not Ember, Dawn, and she essentially had her protective bubble up around, and
Mhm.
that dealt with all the spores. So we got to see that happen throughout the timeline. I'm
That
curious to see. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to chime in, like, that's one of my biggest complaints about the Divine Dungeon series is all you get to see is Mountaindale. So, I would love to
It does
eventually
progress very
see.
fast,
Yeah, but I
but
mean, like,
it
we know
leaves a
stuff
lot
is
of space.
happening out in the world and we don't get to see it.
Yeah.
And like, I'm very much one of those guys, like, I enjoy at least getting those snapshots, right? Like a scene or two showing like what's going on in the bigger world, and then your imagination can kind of fill it in. Um, Granted, we have a couple hundred years before we get to the main series and what's all going on there, but that would be fun, a dozen books down the line or whatever, when things start to sync up, if we're going to get to be blessed to progress into the Completionist Chronicles timeline. It would be fun to see just kind of like the necromantic war as it takes place out there
Oh yeah.
in
Oh yeah.
the
We get
Lion's
at
Kingdom
least
and the Phoenix
two
Kingdom.
of
And
those.
yeah, yeah.
And then I feel like the human kingdoms, or at least for the Lions lineage, with there only being two times the master tried to take over, there's even further back we can go. And,
Yep.
I figure that's going to be the Amazonian arc where we get the Amazonians lineage, which honestly, we didn't get a whole lot of them either, other
Mhm.
than they were the origin of the Master, and Madame Chandra is one, which it doesn't really emphasize because the females are the Amazonians, but I don't know if the males are or if they're
I
the
think all the
people.
males are slaves.
Or yeah, but the people. I don't know. I just remember the whole arc between where Tom freaks out in the meeting, and he's pretty much like, she's a backstabber. She's gonna sign an agreement and then break it and kill off someone else.
Yeah.
That's why she won't sign it herself.
Have her daughter do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, probably your most important question. Was there enough combat?
So the combat didn't really vibe with me, and it made sense in the context because they're brand new and they don't have
They're
a lot of
way
time for
outgunned.
training,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's a scramble, a mad scramble, all which of ways. And then we had the stop for our evil villain monologue, but not really. Um, and then we had the fake out where, oh, when Jackson's taunting Andros towards the end, and he's like, "Your father's dead." I was like, "Oh no, that's the guy in the prologue." But then I got to thinking about it. I'm like, "Wait a minute, no, it's not." Yeah,
That took me a minute too. Knowing who was who kind of along the ways because
yeah,
our Noel's not the one that ends up becoming king, right?
yeah, yeah. He's not, because towards the end there, I'll not Typo, the wisp of Typo,
It begins with a T? No.
Talia.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, she's like, "Oh,
Look at you.
King Lion or Lion King or something." And he's
Lion
like, "I
King.
like the sound of that." And I guess that's another like beauty,
Beauty and the Beast.
ironic beauty of him not even knowing what a lion was. And that's where second time through it really solidified, because I was like,
Hmm.
"Wait, you're from the Lion Kingdom. How do you not know what your crest is?"
No, no,
But
no. He
he
is
was,
the Lion
yeah, he
Kingdom.
is the Lion Kingdom. And I'm sure they have some epic bonding with the cat.
Hmm. Well, yeah. I mean, they're the ones that push back on him towards the end there when he wants to be all defeatist and, like, what can we do? He's stronger. We'll never catch up. And finally,
Yeah, he's
Typo,
stronger
like, that's
now.
his first words. He's like, no. And same thing with Rye. They're like, no.
Yep.
It's like,
Yep.
all right. Makes his big dramatic speech, and then Talia's like, okay, yeah, that was great. Work on the
And
delivery,
yeah,
but
work on the delivery.
we still have a couple days worth of work. That way we don't just lose all this stuff and things collapse and earthquakes happen. Like we have to withdraw our
Yeah.
influence. It's like, oh, okay, good. Because I kind of just like died. So yeah, rest would be good. I like that plan.
Yep.
So yeah.
And I guess that's another like similarly different aspect, because the end of Dungeonborn, we finally can hear Cal because we become a form of Dungeonborn. But then for this one, we were able to hear Typo, but that was due to an oath. And that is
Which is
another.
similar because he's connected, right? Like,
It's similar, but it's it's not, because I guess, yeah, I that's true. Oh,
and he becomes Dungeonborn
I'm
in a
not a
way.
stripper lady. Starts a cult.
Oh,
Minya.
Mina? Yeah.
Yeah, Minya. Sorry, it's horrible descriptor. Minya just ends up, yeah, making a oath, and then she has the same things that Dale does.
Mhm.
So
Where she gets the makeover and everything fixed for her. Yeah.
but that's another element that I'm very curious about, and I don't think it will be done in any one book. But how Blighty from the Arturian Archive gloats about how he was friends with the guy who created the law that binds people with oaths. And
That's
so
right.
that's, of course, before all of this. And
Hmm.
then in the Arturian Archive, there's a moment where he's also like he's saying something about how when you get to a certain rank and you lose a lot of your cultivation is due to something. I thought it was the dungeon that we end up teleporting around with, but I'm not 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what's fun about this series, though. The further you get in, the more kind of connections and, the little yarn things that you can
Well,
drag across each book to be like, so and so here is, yada
and
yada.
that's where like I really
Or you want to
enjoyed the Divine Dungeon
find out
series.
about any half siblings of Henry that could potentially cause problems later down the line. Hmm. Hmm.
What? Where's that coming from?
Oh, I don't know. It's just
Oh,
typical, you know,
200 years of
yeah,
progress.
adventuring and all that other good stuff.
Yep.
I mean, come on, he's got to go out there and quest and fall in love with a couple maidens before putting together his kingdom.
Yeah, I mean, the Master and Madame Chandra aren't together yet, so.
Yeah, a couple
And
hundred years of
he's at
courtship.
least 600 years old by this
Yes,
point.
yes, yes. Um, yeah, great contribution to the series. I agree with you on the combat bit. Like it was a different type of combat, and
Like,
it was.
I was just struggling finding something to, like, really want to connect with. Divine Dungeon series, I was like, okay, started from the bottom, now I'm here, and struggling through it, as well as, like, I really enjoyed the idea of, like, an evolving dungeon, and the cultivation was expressed and explained.
Mhm.
The negative, somewhat, to the Divine Dungeon is it's a very fast pace, where
Super fast pace.
in hindsight, the Divine Dungeon is essentially an outline where every series that's going to come after that's going to be in the Divine Dungeon that happens possibly before Cal is going to be the actual story. But that's what we love about Dakota Krout is the Easter egg potential. And we did get one chuckle where how not Andros, Garin is like, "Oh, I wish it was bunnies." They're like, "Bunnies? That'd be silly."
Yeah. What
And
dungeon do we know that has bunnies?
and
Hmm.
in other connection thought process, oh, when Garin is laying into Talia about her being worthless, and she's like, "Yes, I should go back to Antor." What? Didn't say it. Pretty sure she's from Cantor. Which it also seems like she may have been with another dungeon and then something happened to it, and the compatibility issues might be part of typos thing, but might not.
Hmm.
Um, as well as like, I'm pretty sure Dungeon Eternium is the one who developed the Wisp, and he's not mobile. that we know of. And Cantor is the one that's popping them out and spreading his seed everywhere.
His wisps.
But we don't know if he had a silverwood tree. So we don't know if that's how it happened. Because I think it's 3, might be 4 at the end when Danny comes back to Cal of the Divine Dungeon series and they profess their love as the silverwood or silver tree pollen is showering down. And did that
That's
just
how
happen
baby
kind of
wisps
moment.
are made.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Dennis. So he says, I've got Wisp creation for y'all AA 10 and 11.
Yay.
Yay.
Thank you.
Because
Thank
I'm
you.
pretty
Sucker
sure
for the lores.
it got covered where, Grace was born. But
Hey, good to see you too, Kara. Wisp extension of the Aurora Borealis to confuse / lure beings in that get too close. We did get to see that a bit on
well,
some
yeah,
of the Wisp
that's why I
benefits.
thought Dungeon Eternium was the origin, because, Eternium forever, as well as
Mm,
he's rocking a massive wisp shield dome thing.
yeah.
But then I guess the people have a, oh, welcome to, however he says it, fuck off or whatever. And he's like, well, how to
Oh.
get named that? And it's like, it's not. It's Outpost 1. Because they also have, but I think theirs is achieved through runes.
Yeah. With the people.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which if I'm being, or yeah, feck off. If I'm being brutally honest, I want that backstory there, because like,
The people.
yeah, the way we ended, we got a glimpse, and we love Tom, but then he gets his powers back and he becomes a different person. And yeah,
But the
yeah,
same
it's
person just all of a sudden realizes he's like 60 some years old.
all that plus his mannerisms and okay, yeah, I guess he essentially just downloads 40 years. Forget that.
Kara says, yes, the people wards off Vekhoff are rune script.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious how many kingdoms, so to speak, are built on top of dungeons.
It makes sense. They're
Yeah, it's
powerhouses.
definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've
Oh, hey,
got Tom's
man. Dennis.
story in 11. Okay.
Thank you, Dennis. Kara, I'd be interested to get a series based around the time that the Amazons betrayed the people. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
backstory that would be a lot of fun to
because
get.
I mean that there's a lot there, because we know the master was a slave, so to speak, of the
Mhm.
Amazonians who got help cultivating and being freed by Madame Chandra, but was influenced and got his vast wells of powers from the master. And yeah, there's a lot of potential inside the Amazonians. And then it's also kind of neat the way we end up in um I guess we don't see it yet in Completionist Chronicles. It's through Arturian Archive where, oh, the I'm Thor, but I'm not Thor Zeus guy ends up
Yeah.
with his harem of Amazonians.
Oh, yeah. Real quick shout out. Rohan, appreciate you joining us, the
Hey,
author himself. He says, hi y'all, sorry late, but thanks so much for discussing the book. We appreciate you stopping in, and we had a lot of fun getting to see the world be expanded and the backstory there.
Yeah.
And then our booktube friend Chaz said, "Wow, it seems like the Divine Dungeon is really diverse with a lot of continuations and backstories."
Yeah, by far my favorite book for Easter eggs and causal connections.
What I enjoy about it is like I came up on like the big epic fantasy series. And those books are like 200-300 pages long, like really thick, 20 plus 30 plus hours on Odin Jasper. Yeah, that's your Thor guy. You're talking about the
Oh,
lightning
yeah, yeah.
tornado.
Sorry, I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
thinking Jackson, our guy we're dealing with
Mm,
now, but Jasper. Okay.
yeah. So like Divine Dungeon, what I really enjoy about the series is like I now at this point with how much the series has developed and the side stories, it gives me that epic fantasy feel where I'm able to get the backstory and the lore and understand like the wider story of what's going on without it being like in such a dense book. 'Cause I remember trying to hand
That,
some of my
yeah.
friends, like Dragonlance or gosh, even more recently, Brandon Sanderson's, Stormlight Archive, and they look at it and they're like, wow, like how am I going to get through this? It's just like so much. But more recent years, when I hand out like the Divine Dungeon series, it's so fast paced and so quick that you get immersed in it to where then, like for me, when I picked up Lion's Lineage, where it wasn't like initially what I expected, I still was drawn in because hey, this is lore that fills in the backstory to all these other things that I want and I'm interested in because I'm hooked in the series.
Yeah.
Um,
Real quick, we get Jasper Odin explain AA 1011. Quick
nice.
side note question. It started off as three. One of them gets turned into a duck or whatever, and then I'm pretty sure his other brother's alive too. I don't know if they got transported to Council space. We don't really get to see more of them, but the
Were
fact
they duck
that
or crows? I thought they were like crows.
bird. I
Bird.
don't I don't remember, but yeah, the whole ley line incident where
Yeah.
yeah, so I don't know if his brother survived. It could be a kind of like the people get transported into a Wolfman situation, or it could be I'm literally bringing people back from the dead and giving them brand new bodies. Cal
Uh,
situation. I don't know if that's in there or if that happened.
could be.
Working on book two, Rohan said, which is exciting.
Yes.
There's a lot of developmental potential stuff.
Yes.
Um,
So real quick, Kara said Hugin and Moonin were ravens. Thank you,
uh,
Kara, always being on the lure.
yep, they're in
Um,
10.
Dennis said the Ravens, yep, got those in 10 and 11 as well as the answers to what
Or,
happened
yeah.
with Asgardian, Evan the Dwarf, and all wrapped up in a neat bow. Thank you, thank
Yeah, I
you.
kept going on about Evan.
Huzzah!
I I'm
Huzzah!
not gonna say you're welcome, but that was one of those like random people who didn't have a big scene. It wasn't like critically important, but yeah,
We're still curious. We still
I
want to
want to
know.
know. Yeah, what's going
We
on
want to
here?
know. Kara, our local lore, doing another pass on LL, Lions Lineage, DD, Divine Dungeon, AA, Artorian Archive, and CC Completion Chronicle to do an
S-
in-depth list.
So
Yeah.
as much as I
Door
love the
cup
Easter
smashing.
eggs, I'm already a complete scatterbrain. So trying to remember what happened in what book when, and I keep getting flipped up between Arturian saying it and me feeling like it's in Divine Dungeon, but then going back and realizing how little we see Arturian in Divine Dungeon, so it's
This is
actually
true.
Arturian Archives,
This is true.
and just like trying to find it because I normally do Audible, so I'm constantly just like flipping between chapters trying to figure out where what is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all part of the same universe. All a lot of fun. Very thoroughly enjoying it. Yeah. Looking forward to book 2 and 3.
Oh yeah, you got like 200 plus years to cover before we're technically dead.
Technically.
But that brings up the question of, did the master have an opportunity to give King Henry the Memory Stone? Because A, there was a lot going on. B, he is in the Soul Space in Completist Chronicles, or anyway, he's there
Well,
now to
Cal
have the potential.
also could have all those memories too.
That is true.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Looking forward to learning more about that and all its goodness.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of developmental potential, and we haven't even, really touched on all the races. That's a spoiler. I'm not going to answer. Okay.
We appreciate it. We appreciate it. Um, yeah. Yeah. Really appreciate everybody helping us out in chat. Love seeing you guys, Kara, Dennis, Rohan, Chaz.
You know
Appreciate you guys
who
spending your Saturday nights with us.
I want to see develop? I want to see how Kieran Olsen, because
Mm,
under the assumption he's human. He is the son of Xenocide, who, you know, has an impact spreading his madness to get everybody to fight each other. And Adam is reverent of him, which I'm pretty sure that's, human, and Father Richard human. Curious if he pops up anywhere.
so, believe this is in regards to the Cal might have it. Kara says all items were to be forfeited at the time of entering Soul Space. So if he hadn't given it yet to Cal, and even if he had the stone at the time with entering, he'd need Cal to give it back. So
There's a couple confusing things on that.
mhm.
So I everybody who was above a certain, I we have a lot of potential in that regard too, because we literally got all the information from Dungeon Eternium. We had just, hit up the people and got a lot of information and monsters and potential there. But then we decided to almost die, get transported to the other half of our soul, and melt from the inside, as our fleshy meat suit is not up to the processing power of storing all of what is Cal, into becoming an amalgamation of both and becoming Kale. So, potential packet loss? I don't know.
You're spoiling us, Dennis. Dennis said minor info in book 11. No major reoccurrence of Xenocide's kid. Pretty sure Kier. Yeah. And then
Oh,
Kara said Slayer of Shades tied to the node of justice sees it as right and wrong, aka black and white.
Or so, I guess it was a trap. Talking about Keir Nelson, is he the warden in Completionist Chronicles that we end up killing to get our dark powers? It could just be something else,
I
and I'm
thought you
completely
don't want
off.
spoilers.
Okay, I didn't say it.
We'll go on the
Disregard.
Discord. We'll go on the Discord and ask them.
Fair
Spoilers,
enough.
fair game there. Not so much here. But yes, looking forward to getting more lore and world building goodness.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So we've got the whole development of the Lion Kingdom. We've got, saving Andros. We've got the dungeon in our back pocket.
Dennis said, I went with giving you more fathered Richard instead in 11 rather than Kier full force.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I mean,
And
Father Richard he's right there tied in with all the necromantic wars and fighting
he's one of the priests we actually enjoy. Kira said it is interesting to, or Kara said it's interesting to consider that there may have been potential loss of info when his core was destroyed and Dale had to fuse.
Yeah, it
Uh,
didn't directly say it, but it talked about how he couldn't keep his like souls or personalities split.
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. What
Favorite
was
bit
your
of
favorite?
LL.
Mine was Talia. Talia
I
was a lot
yeah.
of fun.
I think Dennis, that's probably the only thing that Arturian Archive is really missing because we have other series so far have pretty good wisps.
Yeah, yeah. Um, let's see. Favorite part of Lion's Lineage. I'm excited about the potential to see more of the dungeon side of things. I think that's what really drew me into the Divine Dungeon series initially because it was such a new concept for me, to get to see things through the dungeon's perspective. So getting to
Mm,
see Typo develop from, I think it was G to low D, and just the progression there, along with kind of like the different mobs and how he has like typos that ends up making them into like more interesting type mobs, like a lion with water essence makes him more, yoga like and everything. Um,
okay. I guess I didn't really think of that potential. My favorite parts are the way he did the started from the end, now let's begin in the prologue.
mhm.
Beautifully done, as well as he managed to tie in main character's dead, story's over. Just kidding. Now we can begin. Um,
Real quick, let me read this. Kara said, love the dynamics of Dungeon and Wisp in this one, as well as the way that problems were approached slash solved. Yeah, and a lot of times we talk about like fun little takeaways that we have from the different books, and we really got to see how when they started to collaborate with Gar and Andy, just how much quicker Typo's progression took off there, right? Um, so yeah. Most welcome, Rohan. Most
yep.
welcome. Um,
Though it was a little weak in the pun department, but I know that's more Divine Dungeon.
uh,
Trying to think of the good one we had. I remember getting a chuckle out of it. Oh, okay. There are two main chuckles. Oh man. The I've got a secret weapon and it's you. And he's like, I've got a secret weapon too. And he throws a rock and the uh oh, crossbow finally launches, and it's like it's a secret weapon. Can we trade? So I got a
I,
chuckle out of that one. I'm trying to remember the other.
I enjoyed
Oh,
the
it was I've been
relationship dynamics
staring
there.
at this trap for so long. I named it, and I named it Pit Me.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, Here you go, Pete. For the Dennis says for the combat lover question, what was your favorite attack in the book? What do you want to see more combat style wise?
So I
It
feel
was a different
like
approach.
everything, like there wasn't really any like actual attacks. Maybe
Oh,
there
come
were.
on. Think
Well,
of Andy.
cause
Andy was
like
going all like
Andy just
leaf on the
uses the
wind.
movement and
Like we had a moment where like
when
Gar pretty much like was, all Jedi mind tricks with the rocks and then goofed up with his sword throw to Andy, and Andy was all like Kung Fu Panda grabs a hilt midair while still doing his little leaf dance.
yeah, but that was just
While
like a blast of air. That wasn't like I guess the stone guy Lars where he shoots out. Our main guy has a lot of growth potential, and he was kind of just like grabbing each of the elements and shooting it out.
mhm,
Um,
and rocks. Don't forget the rocks and traps.
yeah, the rock socks, and I guess the traps. Yeah, there was a lot of conversations with like the elves and whatnot. I will say I thoroughly enjoyed getting to see more of the creatures or beasts,
Mhm.
and that being, a thing we ran into because throughout the Divine Dungeon, we don't
They
see
had
a whole
some
lot. We
joint
get,
attacks going on, right? Like we had some scenes where we had towards the end, oh, the two different wolf types and then our two different lions.
yeah, like I'm enjoying the creature development or the beast
Mhm.
development a lot more, and that's where knowing what we know about how dungeons are made and the potential there, and kind of like when we get to see more of Typo's when he's emphasizing hungry about Jackson and he wants to take him out, and we get to see more of that primal instinct. And
Mhm.
then, yeah, I didn't feel like there was a whole lot of abilities, but there's potential.
Kara said the attack slash fighting in this one is more defensive and passive rather than offensive and reactive. Actually fits the essence in this story. I can see potentially Tai Chi and Hungar type fighting styles.
Okay.
Good point. Good
That makes
point.
sense for Andros with his air and his
Mm-hmm.
movement.
Mm-hmm. And they're like just way outclassed, right? So they have to come at it from a different approach. Um, Dennis said combat queue for both. What kind of combat do you want to see in the Divine Dungeon extended universe more, overall, more mage, less mage, more techniques, less techniques, more fighting styles, question mark. I think Pete's going to say all of it,
So
please.
it depends on where we're at. Example, Divine Dungeon, we get the moment where Dale literally gets a skill or a spell tailored from him from Cal, and that was used to great effect. And I like kind of like the oddly weird technical abilities at times. But then I also fell in love with Arturian and how he was kind of like, I'm gonna make this up as I go. Hey, what's this? But a lot of that was due to his nature. Um, for this
Which
one, for Lion's Lineage, I figured it would be kind of like what Kara was saying, more, I guess, mm, thoughtful monk-esque movement potential, just because our main guy started from the bottom, was essentially being poisoned, and we get to see it when he straightens the elf's leg out, and
Mm,
all the instances where we get locked in combat, and then they're like, I don't really want to be here, but I'm supposed to be here. Grr. But then, as well as more of like, it's actually a beast dungeon where we got to see Cal as, a human dungeon. So I could see
mm-hmm,
more like primal, straightforward stuff.
mm-hmm,
Um, so yeah, all of it, and I guess I figured it would be a little bit more militaristic as well, because he is building a human kingdom
I can
where
see that.
Arturian was trying to save his family and was rushing a lot of stuff, had a lot of setbacks, a lot of all of the everything. And Dale had a very rigorous, dark elf plus his team and more. Yeah.
Yeah. Kara says, I think various cultivation styles, sources for essences, aids for cultivation, dwarven fire, brandy, the wood elf smoke, etc. I can imagine these things potentially changing in societies and time periods.
That's
Um,
true. This guy, even though he has three major affinities, is technically the low man on the totem pole, because Dale only had one until the end of book one. And then he ends up with all six.
uh,
Arturian only had four until making a deal with Cal. Now he has all six. So this guy does have the potential of being bonded to a dungeon. I don't think that's in the cards. Has three. One of them is a weaker one, but we do know when Dale fixes or opens Hans's meridians that it is possible to widen or develop others. Um, yeah.
I read that, and my answer to Dennis's question was kind of going to be along what I think Carl was saying, where I enjoy seeing more techniques and more of the fighting styles as like the magic and world expands. So like for me, that was one of the things that I did enjoy about Lion's Lineage, was kind of getting to see some of these different techniques through Andy,
Or
because
yeah,
he's
it's
learned these
it's
different things.
the development and the trial.
Because we even see that frustration from Arturian, as well as like with Dale, where it's like, hey, this is the way they do it. Like we all make the key spiral the same. We all do like this the same. And then we get to see through Arturian archives that like, hey, there's a lot of different ways to do this. And Arturian
Yeah,
was doing like all these different methods, to where Ember was like, why are you, like what are you trying to do here? Because like clearly it's not working, or maybe it is working. I don't know. And so for
I
me, being the like world building magic buff, like that's what I enjoy um, about the different series, is like, yes, please show me more potential ways that they can harness these epic powers before they go flying through the sky, as like Arturian and Ember um, start doing crazy things and blasting stuff and whatnot.
or I think there's one
Um,
before that.
well,
Never mind.
yeah. Kara said fighting and combat, weapon designs, rules of engagement, and the like is often tied to culture and society stuff. So seeing new
Yeah.
kingdom being built up opens up to seeing them develop in real time. Well said. Well said and very true. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess so Divine Dungeon, a lot of it is dungeon dive oriented where you have a team of 5 and you're going up against monsters or beasts. Arturian Archive was more human to human, where I'm going to wipe the scourge from the world and save my family. And then Lion's
Hmm.
Lineage is more I've been treated like scum and now I'm gonna, start from the bottom. Now I'm here, show you how it's done.
And yeah, he's done that menial labor before too, which I think is always kind of exciting to see in a leader. Other question from Dennis, Q for both. If there was such a thing as a lion style and phoenix style for fighting, how do you visualize those working, such as for Henry and Marie?
Or don't we get
So
a bit of that in Arturian Archive
we
with
there's some hints from him with his fighting style, right from his military days.
or no, not
Um,
him, the one who trains him when he's first figuring out all the essence sites. She's running she's his
yeah,
charge
yeah.
and carries a clipboard around and oh, I'm not gonna remember the name.
Uh, I know who you're
Anyway.
talking about though. Like when they have their duels or whatever.
Yeah, and
Um,
everyone's
mm,
like, "What's your style?" And I can't remember her style. Anyway,
yeah.
lion style. So I guess that's where I, f- I feel it's either going to be more overwhelmingly aggressive and like in your face, because lions are kind of like, I'm big, I'm bad, you go chomp and or
Rawr.
crush, or it's going to be more like flowing and growling, where
I was
waiting
gonna
for the moment of
say
opportunity
rise of
and then
water
they
type.
they pounce. A lot
Yeah.
of opportunity for everything. Phoenix style, I definitely think I'm a fire in my lasers or pew pew pew, cause giant flying firebirds.
I'm trying to remember Marie. Like, doesn't she? I'm trying. We
Or
discover kind of.
Moravian. That's what Kara, thank you. Her style is Moravian.
Yep. Yeah.
Hmm. Trying to think what
Mm,
else would be incorporated with a phoenix. I also think of like that,
Moravian Liger.
or yeah, like okay, so there was some lion element. Um, oh, feigned death or whatever for phoenix because they die and they rise from the
Reborn from
ashes.
the ashes.
So you'd see
Yeah.
a lot of like feints.
Uh, it's always fun to see the different fighting styles and cultivations and essences and all that good stuff.
Yeah,
As well as just like as I get up into the mage ranks, how the laws they bind to change things, right? We really get to see
but
Artorian kind of embody that the further along he gets in the series,
and I
as well
think
as Cal.
oh, is it a gnome?
Gnomes rule.
Not that book. There's only one left. The rest of
Yep, yep,
them
yep.
were great
Gnome.
inventors.
Hmm.
Okay, our gnome. I think he's got some like ironic name like Never Run. Anyway,
Uh,
our gnome goes on and explains how each node is a thing, but it's only the majority rules vote where multiple elements can do a lot of different things.
hmm
And then Arturian breaks it all and he instead of well he breaks it and solidifies it because in Divine Dungeon we figure out that anybody can do anything when I think the plant mage ends up healing the guy. And it really didn't get super
Feels like
solidified because
roots.
everybody was like, this is how it's done. And then
Mm-hmm.
Arturian took it as, yeah, and he figures out more of that. Or,
Devrash, never dash.
yeah, I couldn't dare brush, never dash. Yeah, never
Yep,
dash.
our gnome. And then
So,
Kara said, lion style, I could see being Chowgar, aggressive close range attacks that deal with stomping enemies in their tracks. For Phoenix, I could see northern style Shaolin with explosive dynamic aggression.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I could see that.
always want more combat, right, Pete?
Yeah, yeah, the combat
I
didn't sell it for
enjoy.
me in this book, but
Uh,
that's okay. We've got
uh,
potential.
you do have a pretty high bar for combat.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's okay. It's okay. Um, yeah, it's it's about that time. It's been a lot of fun. Really looking forward to getting current with the expansion of the universe. Um, Still have a couple more
Arturian
Arturian
archive books to get
archives, and
through.
then
I
waiting
think the
on
next one is WW Wolfman Warlock Book 2 to get on
Audible's not out
Audible.
yet. Yeah,
I think I saw it should be at the beginning of this year or the
2022.
2022. Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Let's see. Nodes share concepts based on what you perceive the given ratio represents. AA Book 2, Chapter 2, Arsenal. Thank you. Thank you. Um, Dennis says people who have a high bar for combat are good people to ask about combat. High
Yeah.
preferences means
Yeah.
good feedback.
Though I am a little hurt. I watched a Brandon Sanderson interview, and he said apparently people don't like the blow by blows, and that hurt. He
Mm,
doesn't do a whole lot of blow by blows, but yeah.
it's not
Anyway,
the easiest thing, like writing combat. Seen it done well, seen
so
it done
I
poorly.
guess I've noticed it more when I'm going back for quotes, but in my mind, the combat happens all like as a cohesive whole. But in reality, there's literally like a sentence of combat, a sentence of dialogue, a thing of this, and it just,
Half a
makes the
page of
whole
screaming as I power up.
cohesive whole.
Ah! Yeah, yeah.
Yep, yep, yep. Oh, yeah, I think we had great questions there, Dennis.
Yeah,
And
appreciate it,
thank you,
Kara.
Kara, our
Absolutely.
resident lore expert.
Yes, 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 yes. Um, Need to get those cheat sheets for our next stream from you, Kara.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, I want to go back.
well said, Kara. Anybody can write combat, but not everyone can do it well.
Yeah.
Yep, yep. Um, well said. Well said. Dennis says, I look forward to hearing y'all talk about your DDEU spreadsheet. This is true.
Yeah.
Join me, Peter. Join the
I
spreadsheet nation.
I need to level up my spreadsheet skills. I
I live in Excel,
My
so
desktop is literally clusters of whatever I was doing at that time, and I have it not set to grid, so I have like different shapes of applications that go together that I was utilizing at that time, and that bugs a lot of people. But I'm so dyslexic that alphabetical messes with me. But yeah, I'm very much more of a spatial person.
good to see you, Rohan. Thanks for joining us. Really, really appreciate the
Yeah,
book. I'm looking
it's
forward to number 2.
exciting. I'm
Yeah,
glad you could join us, and warms my heart, makes it all, you know, I want to do more. Can't wait for book 2.
yeah. And on that note, we're doubling up this weekend, even though we're crazy busy. What do we have on the books for tomorrow, Pete?
So tomorrow is Magnus, book 2 in the Epicosmos series by Dimitro Kirkiris. Too many K's, but yeah. So I honestly I like book 2 more than I liked book 1. Both are amazing. If you do not know the series, book 1 is Berserker, and the it's a lit RPG, but it does it differently. In essentially, we're in a universe, and all of our lore and D&D stuff and our mythological things actually exist, but in a different, I guess, space and time kind of sort of. Book 1, our main guy ends up essentially provoking someone, stuff happens, and gets brought into Upper Cosmos. And now that he's here, he can see all the different things. Um, book 1, I the things that I didn't enjoy were it involved a lot of like economics. It's a very real part of life. But it was great for just nerdy lore and uh, music recommendations if you're into hardcore stuff. Book 2 here was I enjoyed more of because it had more combat. A little bias there. Definitely the combat. Um, oh yeah. The book two's beautifully written. Another pro for the series is if you enjoy animals. Our main, our dog, our corgi, becomes sentient with our main guy, and yeah, he's an amazing companion. I think there's one. Oh, we just got done listening to Dungeon Crawler Carl, and there's an animal who gains sentience in that one. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoy the corgi becoming sentient. Um, mm, yeah, it's
Well, yeah, well said. A lot of fun. Um, Definitely a different take on lit RPG, which is always refreshing, especially when
or I
you.
think it's technically urban lit RPG, where
Mhm.
it's like almost too realistic, but then insert magic.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. Hey, Cliff, good to see you there. But yeah, so we're doubling up. This is tomorrow at 8 p.m. And then the week after that, we are not gonna miss this one, is Lux, which is by Brandon Sanderson and oh, I don't have it on the screen here. Ba, ba, ba. He does it with another author. It is Stephen Michael Bowles. Probably butchered that last name, but oh, it's the Reckoner series, but it's not. It's Brandon Sanderson a while ago, more or less could have considered completed the three Reckoners, and then this is the Texas based Reckoner, so it can be a standalone. And the premise of the Reckoners is, what if people gained superpowers, but were all super villains? And the Reckoners are the everyday normal Joes who, are tired of being under tyrants' thumbs and are trying to fight back. And yeah, it has a little bit of I guess tech um that, helps them even the odds, but yeah, is shorter, is young adult. Um yeah, I enjoy the original series, and this is a good addition.
Yeah, I was just talking to a friend who finished the series, and it's definitely a standalone. I feel they did a good job walking the line to where there is some um, tie-ins and references to the main series, um, but not nearly as much as we got from like the Divine Dungeon extended universe and everything that goes on there. Like that series is much more interconnected than I feel Lux was to the Reckoners. We get like a little bit, but very easily be a standalone upon itself.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, but yeah, looking forward to that. Our first non-lit RPG book in a minute. And then yeah, keep keep sending the book suggestions our way, guys. Going to get December up. I think we already have December up. So
Yeah, we
2022.
did a wave there.
Yeah, 2022. Let us know what you guys want to see us continue series wise.
Thank you for hanging out. And yeah, gotta check on the kid here soon and put her to bed as well. So good night.
Yeah. Night, guys. Thanks for geeking out with us at our not our normal time. See
Yeah,
you tomorrow,
yeah.
guys.
Yep. Thank you. Hope to geek out with you here soon. Bye.
Bye.